Welcome to the RAS Project, a conversation about life, entrepreneurship, personal development, family, tech, and marketing. My name is Ivan Temokov, and I'm your host. On this podcast, you will gather 100% real, raw, and unfiltered life changing advice to help you level up in every aspect of your life and business and help you reach your goals and dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a huge announcement to make. This is the first live broadcast of my podcast of 6 years, the RAS Project, that we are doing live. We are live right now on my Facebook personal profile, my Facebook business page, my Facebook group, the Human Marketing Alliance. We are live on Twitch. We are live on Periscope. We are live on LinkedIn Live. We are live on YouTube, and we are live for the first time on Instagram Live. We are live all over the world and going global, and more platforms are going to be added very, very soon. But I'm very excited about this episode for a couple of reasons. So one thing that I want to mention to you is that thus far, the RAS Project has been available in video on my YouTube channel and Facebook Watch. However, starting today, the podcast will be airing on Mondays and Fridays at noon Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Monday and every Friday, as it has been thus far. And all audio recordings are still going to be available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Alexa, and TuneIn. So you can still listen to the audio format of this particular podcast. So that is the big announcement that I wanted to make, and I'm extremely excited to be doing this in video. And in fact, I actually want to double check first and make sure that we are actually live on my Instagram, just to make sure. Let's see. I probably need to open up IGTV, don't I? Let's see if we are live and streaming here. It would probably help if I did a test, but I didn't do a test. I just dove right into it. So I'll have to double check. Maybe this will get uploaded afterwards. I'm not exactly sure. But okay, let's dive into what I want to talk about today. The social media dilemma. Is social media harmful to us as humans? So the reason I actually wanted to do this particular broadcast, this episode on the social media dilemma, is because someone on somebody in my Facebook told me yesterday, or they posted a post, about the social dilemma. And it really got me thinking, about, the movie itself, and then also, the entire impact of social media. And, I immediately realized that this is probably something that, I need to do an episode on. So what is the social dilemma? Well, the social dilemma, if you're not familiar with it, is a 2020 American docudrama film directed by Jeff Orlovsky and written by Orlovsky. The film explores the rise of social media and the damage it has caused to society, focusing on its exploitation of its users for financial gain through surveillance, capitalism, data mining, how its design is meant to nurture an addiction, its use in politics, effect on mental health, including mental health of adolescents and rising teen suicide rates, and its role in spreading conspiracy theories such as Pizzagate and aiding groups such as Flat Earthers. So that is the social dilemma, the movie. And I just wanted to take some time to talk about this because I actually, believe it or not, last night I happened to watch the movie. Okay. So I actually watched the movie last night on Netflix, which is honestly more than I can say, for what I usually do in my TV time, because I really don't have TV time, to be honest with you. I don't, I barely have a chance to watch TV. And so last night, I got a chance to actually watch the movie, and let's just say that it was very eye-opening on many levels. And I wanted to spend some time, talking about that today in this first episode of the RAS project, which, by the way, we are live all over every major social platform, including Twitch also, which actually I just signed up for recently. So pretty excited, to be live on Twitch because it's something that I wanted to do for a while. So let's go. All right. So what I want to do here is let's go ahead and dive into the first question. What is social media? Okay. Let's talk about social media 101. Well, social media is an interactive computer-mediated technologies that facilitate the creation or sharing of information, ideas, career interests, and other forms of expression via virtual communities and networks. The variety of standalone and built-in social media services currently available introduces challenges of definition. However, there are some common features such as social media interactive, user-generated content. Users create service-specific profiles for the website or app, and social media facilitates the development of online social networks by connecting users' profiles with those of other individual groups. So, one of the things that, the movie was talking about, which, my initial perception of the movie, the social dilemma, which is what we're talking about here. And the first question is covering what is social media, was the fact that, it really just came off as extremely derogatory, if I should say. I think probably the first probably half of the movie was really exploiting the downsides of social media. It was exploiting basically the nuances of social media and the negative impact that social media has on us as human beings, as a society also. And so, my initial perception was, okay, well, I was looking for more of like a neutral type of approach personally. And the first half of the movie really was just spent on, and mind you, the social dilemma, if you haven't watched the movie, is a movie that actually includes actual people who worked at some of these giants like Facebook and Pinterest and Twitter, among some of the few. And so, they were a part of the rise of these social, and, they basically were witnesses of some of the manipulative tactics that were being utilized within these companies for profit gain, for their ability to grow and scale and be able to ultimately maximize revenue by, manipulating human behavior. Now, in the first half of the movie, like I said, it really, the overall messaging just kind of came across as very derogatory, very negative, as if there was zero positivity, in social media, as if social media was 100% derogatory for human beings, 100% negative for us as human beings. And so the first, question that, I wanted to cover here is just to kind of, give everyone an overview of what is social media, so we can kind of, set the tone for what we're about to talk about here. And that is the Social Dilemma movie, which is a movie that was actually released on the Sundance Film Festival in January of 2020, I believe. And it really sort of, exposed the mental health, the democracy, the discrimination behind, social media as a whole. And so, I wanted to spend some time basically talking about this and share my perspective on, the social dilemma and just on social media as a whole. So, I think we all know basically what social media is and what it stands for and how, it connects us, right? So, let's move on to the second topic that, I wanted to cover here. And that is, what are the most popular social media platforms? Again, if you're just tuning in, this is the RAS Project. This is a podcast where we talk about family, tech, marketing, personal development. And it's 100% real, raw, and unfiltered. And it is meant to help you reach your goals and dreams and hopefully get some insight out of this. So we're talking about the Social Dilemma movie here, which I happened to watch on Netflix last night. And let's just say that I had some thoughts that I wanted to share on this. And the second question that we are covering now is, what are the most popular social media platforms? Well, as we know it, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. These are, the big giants, so to speak. These are the the huge social platforms that are most utilized nowadays. And excuse me. So this is where the majority of the world basically spends their time, and I've mentioned these obviously because these are some of the most popular ones. The reason, and they're not necessarily in an order in terms of audience either. Now Facebook says they've got over 2.2 billion users now, which is about a third of the global population. But what people don't know also is that about half of those users are actually fake. And the reason for that is that, Facebook had to inflate their numbers in some form or fashion in order to be able to grow. And that growth obviously was beneficial to its advertisers and its partners. Now, Instagram is, I think, a billion or over a billion at this point. TikTok is actually dominating, I believe, in the United States, being the most utilized social media platform. And obviously, that particular social platform has caused a lot of controversy. I think TikTok was even banned, or it might still be in the United States technically, but they're working through those nuances. And Snapchat obviously, was pretty popular for quite some time. Twitter obviously has been around for, well, at least a decade at this point. It's actually probably the second oldest social network at this point after Facebook. When Facebook really started in 2007, and I believe Twitter kind of started around the same time, 2008. LinkedIn, obviously, also the professional network, and then YouTube also. So in terms of, video, YouTube is technically the largest search engine in the world. If you want to go and find the battery on your car, you certainly do that on YouTube. That's sort of the world that we live in. And so everything that I'm going to talk about from this point on, and again, we are live on all social platforms. We are streaming live on Instagram Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, also everywhere. And this audio portion of the RAS Project is going to be available also on all your favorite podcasting platforms in audio. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Alexa. You can get it everywhere. Just simply search for the RAS Project. So we're just talking about, what are the most popular social platforms. Now let's get into something a little bit more granular here. Okay, the social media manipulate us, and so the Social Dilemma movie, in the first half of the movie, really talked about how from I would say probably from the beginning of time, when these social giants like Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram also, had the sole intent to manipulate human beings, to manipulate them in a way to where they could spark that dopamine and be able to influence human behavior. Now, after some period of time, these social giants, realized that, what? We have the power, we have the capability to be able to affect major decisions and emotions upon people. And this is something that is extremely, extremely disruptive. This is something that, nobody has ever done, and so it was really just, a shift in human behavior. It was a shift in the ability, for these technology companies to be able to manipulate the decision making of people, the decision making of world leaders, simply because through the dopamine factor, these social giants like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and now TikTok are in essence manipulating human behavior. And my take on that is that, let's face it, manipulation happens based on influence. And so, yes, I do see, a sense of manipulation happening through social media. But at the end of the day, you use these social networks at your own discretion. You are giving permission to these social networks to access your information. And if you ask me, this digital world that we live in, actually, it's very difficult to have some sense of privacy. And so, if you ask me, you actually, as a consumer, you haven't had privacy for a long time. It's just now with, giants like Google, obviously, also, which was talked about in the Social Dilemma movie, to where most people think that, okay, well, what I search on Google is just in the search box, right? On my mobile phone or on my desktop or on my laptop computer. But the reality of things is what happens in the background. What happens in the background where all this information is collected about your activity, and the proximity of things, geofencing, So yeah, social media networks are manipulating us to some form or fashion. But I don't think that they're manipulating us to a point to where we are our own worst enemy. Because at the end of the day, you have not lost self-control. And I think that's what, one of the things that this movie was talking about that I think us as human beings are forgetting is that self-control is something that we have the power to control. And I think that maybe perhaps with social media and these major social platforms, a lot of people are sort of overseeing and misconstruing how social media is meant to be utilized. Sure, there is some manipulative tactics, and the movie really talked about how the algorithms really are gauging proximity, of people, how algorithms are gauging certain behaviors and reactions. And that's why you see certain stuff in your news feed, and that's why you have the option, to manipulate some things, or you don't, or, the algo would say that, you need to see this particular post, and so we're going to serve it to you. And so one thing that was actually, very interesting that I wanted to talk about, which really kind of goes into, the manipulation question that, I wanted to chat about here, is the fact of how Instagram seems to be one of the most impactful, the most manipulative of social media platforms out there, and how it's really shaping or changing us as a society. And I will tell you this, I don't know about you guys, but, I'm someone who has been on social media since the beginning of time. And I'm talking about AOL chat, which some of you probably don't even remember. Okay. I'm talking about like chat rooms. I'm talking about like when they still existed. I'm talking about dial-up internet, like back in my high school days. That's how far back I go to the early days of social media. And if any of you remember MySpace, like the early days of MySpace, where, it was cool to update your profile and it was cool, to update your header photo, yes, it did create an addiction. Yes, it did create that dopamine factor to where it was giving you more, right? But when you think about this for a second, I think the connectivity factor and communication are important things to keep in mind. And I think in the beginning of time, social media was really created for the right reasons. It was created to connect people in the same way that the internet now exists today. When the internet was really more of a private sector, back in the 80s, that U.S. government, the U.S. military was using until they realized that, what, we could monetize this. We could do some good with this. We can totally open this up to the public. But I think that with social media now, it varies on application. Is social media manipulating you? Yes, I think so. But is social media derogatory to your life? Is social media creating life or death, situations? I don't know. I mean, yes and no. Yes and no, meaning that, again, at the end of the day, results vary based on your usage, based on your experience. I mean, where I was going with talking about the fact that I've been on social media for such a long time, over 25 years, sure, I'm plugged into social media. I mean, here's my phone, I get a bunch of notifications on it, but I have realized also that, social media is a great avenue for communication, for connectivity, to be able to connect with other like-minded people, and is enhanced the human interaction experience, not supplemented. It has enhanced it by providing another avenue to where people can actually connect. But let's think about this. Is there anything on this world that is not manipulative? There's so many things that are manipulative. So I think, one of the things that the movie was really emphasizing upon is how manipulative social media really is. And I would agree with that. It is manipulative, but at the same time, it's not. You have the power. You have self-control. You have the authority to say yes or no. So you are giving permission. And you have the option not to give permission to these social giants, to manipulate you, if that's what you choose not to do. There's several social networks now that are rising up that are focusing really more on privacy, on the humane aspect. One thing that the Social Dilemma movie was talking about, the Humane Center of Technology, that is really emphasizing upon, the human element of technology and how it should be utilized, because social media, circumvents technology because of the social platforms, right? And look, I'm a big fan of humanizing anything. I want to make sure, and I share that out there because, I don't like to be manipulated in a way that I dislike. But if I'm manipulated based on something that I have an interest in, why wouldn't I allow that? Again, it's about permission. It's about allowing. It's about giving up control voluntarily, not involuntarily. And I think that's where manipulation really, gets sort of grayed out, that, it's 100% manipulative, and that, oh my God, social media is 100% manipulative, and it's 100% bad. We shouldn't use social media. I'm going to be honest with you. It's because of social media why I have a digital agency. It's because of social media why, I've been able to connect with people and meet some great people from around the world, and so I wouldn't necessarily say that, social media is, 100%, manipulative. It's manipulative to some sense. Now let's move on to the next question. Is social media harmful, unethical to us as humans? Where should I start with this? I feel like, so in the Social Dilemma, one thing that I was, really opposed to is that probably about 3/4 of the movie. So until about 3/4 of the movie, and again, you are tuning into the RAS Project. If you're just tuning in, we are live on every major social platform, and we're discussing the Social Dilemma. the movie. I happened to actually watch it on Netflix last night, and I have to thank a Facebook friend who actually mentioned that in her feed. And I actually gave in. It's actually the only thing I think I've watched this week, actually, believe it or not. And so we are talking about the social dilemma and talking about certain questions that really pertain to the movie. And one thing that I wanted to mention. So it wasn't until about, I think, 3/4 of the way into the social dilemma when Mark Zuckerberg was actually mentioned, and there was a lot of controversy around this of behind that. Why is it that Zuck was not until 3/4 into the movie? And a lot of people's response was that, well, Facebook is such a huge giant and he has such a huge social impact on society that, they did not want to compromise, or create any kind of, unnecessary havoc. And I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, well, it's a free world, free speech, as long as you're ethical, why wouldn't you want to talk about it? And so that's what I want to talk about here is social media harmful, unethical to us humans? Everything varies based on application. I've met some extremely derogatory people on social media, and I knew that, I'm going to block them. They have no part in my life. I have the option to do that on social media. I should in no form or fashion allow them to influence my life. And, people don't, what am I trying to say here? People don't, understand that you have control of doing that. In fact, it's actually easier to say that social media is harmful and unethical, because is it unethical? Yes, but it's unethical because I think people, the community, make it that way. It's not the platforms. You see, sure, I mean, some people would debate the 2016 election and whether or not that was manipulated, and Russia's involvement with Facebook and all of that. And that's actually something that the movie talks about. And it's that, whether there's factual proof of Russia actually intervening the 2016 election, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But I will tell you this, that we all have access to just about all the tools on these social platforms. But how we use these tools at our own discretion is ultimately the difference. So what you post on Facebook, what you post on Instagram, what you post on your stories now, are you willing to give up that much information? Are you willing to share that much information? And I think that a lot of people want to say that, okay, well, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn is harmful, that, it's derogatory, it's unethical, and I'm here to tell you this, that, results vary based on application. So if you think social media is unethical, why is it unethical? Is it because you have surrounded yourself with unethical people? And if so, you have the power to exclude those people from your life. So why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? You have the control to do that. Are the social platforms unethical for the messaging that they push out there, or the support, or the negativity? Maybe. But these are also privately owned companies. And as a consumer, as a user of this platform, you have the option to oppose those unethical behaviors. And this is what people don't understand. So if you think Facebook is unethical, if you think or harmful, or Instagram, or Twitter, or LinkedIn, you're the person who has control. You are the person who has the ability to oppose that, to file a complaint. But I think what a lot of people simply, are not willing to comprehend here is the fact that they think that they have no control. they think that they're controlled and manipulated by all these social platforms. And this is where the algorithm comes in. And I'm one of those people that I think, yes, the algorithms definitely manipulate us. Can they be harmful and unethical? Yes, but you still have control. You still have a choice. Think of it this way: if you think any of these social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, Google, are harmful and unethical, don't use them. If you oppose their practice and you think they're in violation of something that's unethical or something that is ethical, but they're practicing an unethical approach to it, then oppose it. Absolutely oppose it. That is what I would do also, because I'm a huge fan of humanizing anything. And so if you think something is unethical or harmful, then oppose it. But, turning around and saying, well, all these social giants, which is literally in part what the Social Dilemma movie was talking about for the first half, is how degrading these social platforms were. Sean Parker, who is the founder of Napster. I don't know if any of you remember Napster, the Napster days of, downloading music illegally. Former president of Facebook actually made a statement in the Social Dilemma movie where he was talking about, the fact that they were self-aware. So Facebook was self-aware. Mark Zuckerberg was self-aware of how manipulative the Facebook platform was about to be. And I'm definitely not looking to harp here on Facebook, because I think all these other social giants, and Instagram obviously being an entity now, and WhatsApp also being entities owned by Facebook, follow the same methodology where they are manipulating. But I think it's manipulation by choice. I don't think it's involuntary manipulation. I don't know about you, but I would definitely not allow, someone to manipulate me in a way that I simply did not choose, because I have a choice as a human being. I have a choice as a consumer. And if I don't exercise that, then is it because I've been influenced not to, or I simply didn't care to? Again, it's a matter of, are these social platforms really harmful and unethical? And are they really manipulating people to a point where they're giving up their freedom? They're giving up their will. They're giving up their ability to control. I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't. I choose everything I do. It's a choice. And nobody is going to no social platform is going to manipulate me in a way that, I'm not reciprocating to. I'm unwilling to. Sure, all these social platforms have been charged with unethical practices. I get it, absolutely. And sure, it needs to be opposed. It needs to be opposed. And there's a lot of people who oppose it out there. I'm not saying that you should. If you think it's unethical, personally for me, I use these social platforms in a way that is beneficial to me based on my interests, based on my needs. And again, it's a matter of question. This is a very difficult topic, I think. Is social media harmful or unethical to human beings? Let's go ahead and jump into the next question here that I want to talk about. And let's see. How can social media spew positive impact? So here's what I want to talk about on this. So in the Social Dilemma movie, a lot of what was being discussed is, the negative and the derogatory impact of social media and how it was degrading to humans. But in the reality of things, there was little or no positivity around social media. And I'll give you a prime example. Because of social media, I can actually connect with people across the pond. old friends from Bulgaria, my family also, I can use video chat, to talk with them, and I didn't have that option, over a decade ago, not even until about 5, maybe 7 years ago. And so how about that, social media is actually helping. As we know, cybercrime is one of the largest growing crimes, right? And so how about that social media is actually helping law enforcement be able to catch these criminals because it's giving them access to their private information, to the stuff they put up on their profiles on all the social platforms. Does anybody talk about that? Does anybody talk about the impact of social media? Or the fact that you rejoice when, a new family member is born. Does anybody ever talk about that? The positive impact of social media? Or is all social media bad? Is all social media derogatory? Is all social media harmful and unethical? Not all, but if you look at life in itself, let's take a look at life and business, right? Is everything harmful? No. Is everything unethical? No. Is everything derogatory? No. So how is social media really any different? It's based on your usage. It's based on application, And how can social media spew more positive impact? Well, it's by giving to community, by influencing in a positive way, And I think a lot of the social platforms are doing that, And that's what I think a lot of people, are simply forgetting. A lot of people, are forgetting the fact that, social media has a positive impact, right? Social media can influence people in a positive way. Manipulate them. Influence and manipulation. Manipulation is attributed to a negative impact, but so can influence as well. And social media does 100% have positive impact. But at the end of the day, I think people are so drawn to negativity because we have so much of that in the world that it's easy to say, you know what, it's social media's fault. It's social media's fault that I don't engage with my kids. It's social media's fault that it ruined my marriage. It's social media's fault that, my life sucks. But let's look at it this way. Let's look at before social media and how social media has really enhanced who we are as human beings. I think that's what it has really done. If you are someone who is ill-willed, sure, social media is going to bring out the worst out of you. And that's going to impact and influence and manipulate a whole bunch of people. You don't need the algorithm to do that for you. So that's really the key message I wanted to share here, about social media and how social media, is intended. I think it was intended, at least from the beginning, to create positive impact, to be able to spew positivity, and I think those social platforms still have that intact. How big of a portion it is, I don't know, honestly, but social media is not all bad. It's based on usage, it's based on application, it's based on the choices and the actions that you take. And social media has really just amplified that as from inside of us as human beings, because it has given us access to the rest of the world. And this is what a lot of people, are failing to understand, because, it's so easy to say, oh, you know what? Social media is bad. It's all bad. There's no positivity, in social media, and I think that's crap. I think that is not true. I think that at the end of the day, you have control. You exercise the control. So here's an example. One of the things that, my wife and I have really talked about is, How can we be more restrictive with social media time when it comes to, our own kids? So I have a 4-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. And so, they both watch YouTube Kids. So of course they're watching YouTube Kids, and YouTube is collecting data based on usage, right? Because they use that data to create predictions, and that's something that the Social Dilemma movie was also talking about. How data is being used to create forecasting, and after a while, once you have so much data, you can use that data to create even better predictions. And so, with our kids, they do watch the tablets, but they also play a lot. It's kind of a happy balance. And so to say, is social media all bad or negative? No. How is it spewing positive impact? Well, my kids watch YouTube Kids. These are fun movies that they watch of other kids. They also play, games and apps, on the tablet or on my phone or on their phone also. And so again, at the end of the day, you have to exercise some restrictions, to create positive impact. Now, how do you create even more positive impact? Is through positive influence, But the thing of it here is that social media is also driven by people. That's what a lot of folks don't understand. I think that was one of the missing components in the Social Dilemma movie, because, they fail to talk about that social media is fueled by community. People are willingly sharing information by choice, not by requirement, by choice. And so I think in a way the movie was kind of derogatory in many ways, and it was lacking a lot of facts also, simply because, if you ask me, I think social media has a lot of positive impact. And again, it's how you use it at the end of the day. So, that's really the last thing that, I wanted to talk about in this podcast episode. And again, this is the first The RAS Project episode. We're streaming live everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn Live, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Instagram Live, everywhere. And I'm pretty excited about this. So this was episode 89 of the RAS Project, which you can pick up the audio version of this at a later date. And look, guys and gals, I have one favor to ask from you. If you feel that I've given you some value in this podcast, some perspective, helped you make a change in your personal life or business, I would greatly appreciate it if you share this video, this podcast, with someone else. I'm not selling you anything or forcing you to buy shit you don't want. I'm simply asking you to share this podcast with other people who may want to change their life and business based on the information that I have shared. If you enjoyed the podcast and keep coming back, it would also mean the world to me if you shared a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere that you are watching or listening to this particular episode of the RAS Project. And that should do it for today. Very excited about this. Thank you to everyone who tuned in on the live, on watching the recorded version of this. And Monday, I will be back with a very special guest. So make sure to tune in on October 26th, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. God bless you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.